Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So, guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick information if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? All right, so before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself to you all first. So, my name is Neeraj Keria, and I've been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. All right, so let's start with the discussion on Angular. So the main agenda for this entire session, we are going to discuss on what exactly is Angular, and then we are going to talk about what's new in Angular 9. Then we are going to talk about Angular 8 IB, and then we are going to talk about the project setup, and then we are going to talk about what exactly a TypeScript is, and then we are going to talk about the components and how exactly Angular loads, including seeing how exactly it can be installed as well. And then we are going to discuss on planning and application on Angular platform. So first of all, we are going to discuss on what exactly we mean by Angular here. So Angular, as we know, is one of the most popular web frameworks for web development, and surveys have shown that the number of skilled Angular developers are much less than that the number of jobs available for it. And the best way we can get a good job in this entire domain is to get certified on top of Angular so that we can actually prove that we are having the knowledge and experience required to work on this framework. So Angular is basically what? Angular is basically a TypeScript based open source framework for building client-side web applications. Now, since TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, so let's first understand about JavaScript itself. So JavaScript basically runs on the client side of the web, which can be used to design or program how the web pages behave on the occurrence of an event. So typically, JavaScript is used for interface interactions, slideshows, and other interactive components available in a web page. So whatever functionality that we see in the website, so that is given to us by using JavaScript. So we can say HTML is the building block of any web page. So whatever elements we see on the website, those are the results of HTML. Whatever styling components we see on the web page, that is a result of CSS. And whatever functionalities that we see on the web page, that is a result of JavaScript, right? And JavaScript evolved quickly and has been mostly used for server-side programming, like in Node.js, game development as well. So JavaScript basically deals with dynamic content, which is an important aspect of web development. So dynamic content refers to constantly changing content and it adapts to specific users. For example, JavaScript can be used to determine whether or not to render the mobile version of the website by checking the device which is accessing the website as well. And this encouraged web developers to start creating their own custom JavaScript libraries for reducing the number of code lines and implementing complex functionalities easily. So jQuery is a fast, small, and feature-rich JavaScript library, which makes things like HTML document traversal and manipulation, event handling, animation, and Ajax much simpler with an easy-to-use API. jQuery became the most popular one because it was easy to use and extremely powerful. So instead of creating the functions at our own end, we can use multiple predefined functions available in jQuery library, and then we can start using them one by one as a part of the advantage that we had in jQuery library here. All right. And if you talk about the front-end development framework, then front-end development is all about parts of the website that users see. It is also referred as the CSS frameworks, where we have multiple predefined CSS stylings available that we can make use of. And these are the packages that contain pre-written standardized codes in files and folders. And they give you a base to build on while still allowing you flexibility with the final design as well. And as we had discussed, So it is maintained and developed by Google. So AngularJS is a JavaScript-based open source front-end web framework and maintained by Google by a community of individuals and corporations to address many of the challenges encountered in developing single-page applications. Now, Angular, as we know, is and has been popular for building single-page applications. Now, when we talk about single-page application, we simply mean that an application that works inside a browser and does not require any page reloading during use. For example, if we are going to use Google Maps, for example, if we use Google Maps, then when we are using Google Maps, we don't have to navigate to multiple pages, correct? So if we simply start working on Google Maps, so we don't have to navigate to multiple pages here, right? So for example, here, currently we are in Google Maps, right? So let's say if we search for any specific locations, for example, here we are looking for Disney World, for example, Disney World. So as you can see here, the page is not getting changed here, correct? So whatever activity we are doing, the entire content is getting refreshed and all the elements are getting updated. But these things, but again, we are not navigating to a different page. Whatever we are doing here, we are simply, for example, if you want to see the photos here, we can click on simply photo section here, suppose by all photos. As you can see here, no new page is currently being opened up. The same page is there, only the content here is getting changed as a part of the entire analysis, or as a part of the entire functionality, correct? Same way we have expanded the entire functionality as well here. If you want to see the entire street view, or if you want to see this entire force views available, then we can simply see it. So there is no restriction. So they again, if we want to navigate to street view, again, the content here itself has been updated, correct? Without changing the entire page. So these kind of applications, like we have Gmail, we have Google Maps, social media platforms, like we have the newsfeed section, where we don't need to update, or we can say where we don't need to change any pages, then that is referred as a single page application. And Angular has been popular for building these kind of single page application itself. And it aims to simplify both development and the testing of such applications by providing a framework for client-side model view controller that we refer as MVC and model view model that we refer as MVVM architectures that we are going to talk about as we proceed further. And then it is JavaScript based as we had discussed. So it's the most popular and one of the easiest language to learn as compared to other programming languages. And Angular is based on JavaScript and TypeScript, so which is basically a superset of JavaScript itself as a part of discussion that we had. And then we had this single page application. So where we can use applications such as Gmail, Google Maps, Facebook, or GitHub. These are referred as single page applications. So when we say SPAs, or we can single page applications, they have a heavier usage of Ajax because at the end, the content here is not going to get changed, right? So they make use of Ajax component to simply change the content within different components without refreshing the entire page, correct? So as a result, the process of rendering pages happens mostly on the client side for single page applications here. All right. So now if we talk about Angular 9, so now there have been multiple versions of Angular itself. Like we have Angular, earlier we used to have Angular 8, and then now we have Angular 9. So if you talk about what exactly is new in Angular 9, then multiple things have been updated here. So for example, if we refer to the applications designed in Angular 9, so they have not just in application view here, they have multiple other changes here, correct? So now we have in Angular 9, we have applications in Angular 9 are IB compiled by default. And if you talk about IB, then Angular 9's compiling and rendering engine is known as IB. So that is what we refer as IB here in Angular 9. So the older versions of Angular made use of Vue engine. So before Angular 9, like in Angular 8, we used to have Vue engine. So the bundle size produced by Vue engine is very large, but with IB engine, the bundle size has been reduced, thereby helping Angular overcome its bundle issues as well. So for example, let's say if the simplest Hello World program was about 36 KB, which is quite a large bundle size for a simple Hello World program. So the Angular team decided that they will keep a threshold value of 10 KB. So this was called as the cake threshold because the head of that team decided to give the team all the cake in case they reduce the bundle size to below 10 KB. And the team was successful in reducing the bundle size incredibly to just 7.3 KB with the minified IB version and something even better, that is a 2.7 KB with the IB compressed version. And this was indeed a great achievement, and they did deserve all the cake as well. Angular applications compile ahead of time. That means they are compiled before the browser downloads and run it to reduce the latency as well. All right. So basically, when we would, if we talk about the earlier versions, then when we would have made a simple build, for example, if we would make use of the ng build command, the whole application gets recompiled, correct? And this was because the Angular components were all aware of the all dependencies of themselves. And for example, if the application has a component that contains the ngif, then the component would also know what this ngif needs in order to compile it, right? So in case you make any changes to any of the ngif's dependencies, all components that contains this ngif need to be recompiled. As a result, the team came up with the idea of locality principle, so which brought forth single file compilation. And the components that contain the ngif don't actually need to know its dependencies. So in this case, if some components is recompiled, nothing else will be needed to recompile, putting an end to the global compilation. And the IB calls the constructor of the ngif, which knows the exact dependencies of it. And in Angular 9, no, Angular 9 requires version 3.7. So any version below that, that is not supported. And even the support for version 8 has been deprecated after 20th of November 2020. All right. And the TS library is now a peer dependency rather than a direct one as well. So now, if we talk about Angular 8 IB, so as we discussed, so not Angular 8, Angular 9 IB. So because IB was introduced in Angular 9, so Angular 9's compiling and rendering engine is known as IB, as we had discussed. So the main benefit of using IB is, as we discussed earlier, it used to be 36 KB in size, which was reduced by to almost 7.3 KB in IB unified, whereas in IB compressed version, it was reduced to 2.7 KB. So it offers smaller bundle size. It is very helpful when it comes to debugging, and it brings faster compilation as well as and when required. Now let's talk about Angular AOT as well as what exactly it means. So Angular AOT compiler, we can say AOT compiler compiles our code's HTML and the TypeScript into JavaScript before the browser downloads and executes it. So there are multiple reasons why we must use the AOT compiler as well. So when we use the AOT, the rendering becomes faster. And this makes sure, and again, this is basically due to the fact that browser can download a pre-compiled version of our project code, and it can simply load the executable code, and this helps the application to render instantly without it having to compile the code first. And next, AOT inlines all the external HTML and CSS. That means the AOT compiler will inline all the external HTML and CSS within the application JavaScript, which is in turn eliminates discrete HS request for the source files. And it helps in reducing the size of the Angular framework itself. So when the applications are already compiled, there is no need to download the Angular compiler. So this helps in reducing the size of the Angular framework being downloaded, as the compiler is half the size of Angular itself. And it helps in finding template errors during the build process. So basically, Angular's AOT compiler will help us in finding template errors during the process. And If you talk about reduction in injection attacks, so the reduction in injection attacks as the HTML templates are pre-compiled into the JavaScript before they are rendered on the client side, thereby they simply provide a better security as well as compared to the other frameworks available. So we are going to see how exactly the entire project is going to be structured along with discussion on TypeScript as well. So if you talk about TypeScript, then TypeScript is basically a strongly typed superset of JavaScript itself that compiles to plain JavaScript. And we can use this language for application scale JavaScript development and can be executed on any browser, any host, and on any operating system. And in and this is what exactly it is. So basically, TypeScript is a pure object-oriented with classes, interfaces, and statically typed programming languages like C or Java. And it requires a compiler to compile and generate in JavaScript file. So basically, we can say that TypeScript is an ES6 version of JavaScript with some additional features also available here. And all the code is written in a file with a simple .ts extension. Just like for JavaScript, we have .js. Same way for TypeScript, we have .ts extension. And then compile into JavaScript using compiler. And we can write the code in any editor as part of the requirement, be in Sublime Text, Visual Studio Code, or any of the other IDs as well. We can use it. And after the installation, the command tsc as in the file.ts compiles in that TypeScript and into a plain JavaScript code as well. So before we discuss further, let's see how we can install Angular. So first of all, we have to use Node.js itself. So again, we can download Node platform in order to get started working on Angular. So here, in order to get started working on Angular, first of all, the easiest method is we can go ahead and download Node.js first. So once we have, now just to confirm that we have this one properly installed, so we can open up command prompt. And just to cross-check that it has been properly installed, we can type in Node and then the version. In case Node has been properly installed, we would be able to see the current version of Node returned to us. As you can see, it has been returned to us. So once we have this installed here, so now to begin with the installation of Angular. So here we can open up the command prompt and here we can get started with the exact installation of Angular framework here. So here we can come back to our command prompt. Now, once we have Node environment properly configured, then first of all, we have to start with downloading Angular CLI. So here we can type in npm. npm is basically a Node package manager available to us by Node itself. And here we can define npm install. And then we can use a global package. So basically we have two different versions. We can either install a local package or we can use a global package. So here we can define install space hyphen global. And then we can define we want to install the Angular CLI. So here we can type it and the rate, and here we can define Angular /CLI. So this is going to download the Angular CLI package from the Node package manager. In case it has already been installed, then it is going to be quick. In case it hasn't been, then it is going to take a couple of minutes for properly installing Angular CLI package locally in our system. As you can see here, since it has already been installed, this is going to take less amount of time. As you can see, it has simply added one package and then updated 11 packages, and that too in 28 seconds. And then once we have it installed, then here we can type in as ng. ng refers to Angular, and then we can create a new application itself. So here we can define ng new, and we can define the application name. Let's say here we want to call it as my-app, and here we can define my app. So this is going to create a folder by the name of my app, and that too in this folder here. And this is what we want to, for example, here we can define what if now here if we want to use Angular routing, We can define which style sheet we want to use here. We have CSS, we have support for SCSS, for SAS, for list, and for stylus as well. Let's say we want to stick with CSS. So here we can choose CSS, and then we can see these style sheets are going to be defined here. And as we speak, currently it is being configured. So sometimes it is going to take a while here. As you can see, it is currently installing all the packages. And once the installation has been done, then we will be able to see the success code being returned to us. And then we are going to see the folder created by the name of the project directory that we have defined. And then we can switch to the directory. And then we are going to open, and then simply we are going to use a serve command, which is going to launch the server, in which the application is going to be open up in the browser at port 4200. So once we have installed Angular, then we can simply change the directory. So for that, we can simply use cd command. So here we have to use cd, and we have to change to the directory where we have installed the Angular application. And then we can simply use a command such as ng, and then we have to specify the application name, and then we have to simply define ng serve open. So once we have navigated to that folder, and then once we navigate to that folder, we would be able to see the application, the default application of Angular will be launched on this port as port 4200. So here we can see the entire application has been opened up on this port. And in order to work on this, we can open this entire code file in any of the code editors. For example, we are going to use Visual Studio Code. So if we are comfortable, we can use Sublime Text, we can use Notepad++, we can use any code editor as part of the requirement. We can do anything. So here we can see the code editor. So now we have to open up the code editor, and we have to open the folder in the code editor for working on the project. So here we can simply click on File. Here we can find Open Folder. And currently we have installed the application by the name of My App, right? So here we can define My App. So we can choose My App, and here we can click on Select Folder. So this is going to open up the My App folder structure. So here you can see the entire folder structure has been currently opened up. Now, if we talk about the entire folder structure, then first of all, we have E2E. So E2E folder stands for end-to-end testing, also known as an integration testing, to provide high-level overview for the web application. So the E2E folder consists of specs and configuration file. We can see here. So here we have the configuration file or JSON, and the E2E are powered by a testing library called as Protractor, and E2E test runner that can take scenario tests, and it can run them in the browser as well. And then we have node modules folder. So here we can see, here we have other folder defined as node modules. So the node modules folder consists of all the npm packages, as in node package manager packages, and the dependencies required by the web application. So whether we have installed React or Angular, we can see the applications being returned for both. And then we have source folder. So the source folder consists of 3 subfolders. We have app folder, assets, and then we have environments. So these along with many other files. So first of all, we have app folder. So in the app folder, we will be able to see the components in which the logic and data is defined. And then we have app component.ts, right? So this TypeScript file describes the logic for the application's root component, named as app component itself. So here we have .ts applicable here, correct? So whatever the root component we want to work on, that is going to be defined under app component.ts. And then we have app component.html, which is going, and CSS. So the HTML file defines the HTML template associated with the root app component, and the CSS file will define the basic CSS style sheet that is going to be linked with the HTML document here. So as you can see here in app component.html, we can see the entire styling has been defined within this app component.html. Correct. So we can see the entire styling has been already defined here. Plus whatever we are seeing in the application that has been defined in the HTML code, as you can see here. So whatever we are seeing in the browser, this entire application is the one defined under app component.html as a single component. So in Angular, we can create multiple components and then we can update them here as per the requirement. For example, let's say if we delete the entire code, which is available in app component.html, and let's say here we want to start by placing everything in center, and then let's say here we want to place everything in a single division tab here, and within division we want to place everything in center, and then here we want to start with a simple h1 as welcome to Edureka. If we save this, we come back, we can see the entire application is itself gets automatically refreshed. So we can see the entire code has now been replaced with welcome to Edureka, correct? And now suppose here we keep on adding multiple elements, for example h3, as in we are learning Angular JS framework. Again, we save this, we can see the entire element is going to be automatically refreshed. You can see here we are learning Angular JS framework also being added here, right? And same way, suppose here we want to add a button as submit, or not submit here, a simple button element. Suppose here we define button as get started. If we save this, we can see the element has also been added here. So this is what we are defining as a single component. And this component itself is what gets defined here as app component. So currently in here we have defined selectors as app root. That means in here we can see here we have all the elements, whatever we can see here, and that is going to be rendered in the index.html file here. So here we can define, here we define title as my app, and this is going to be the base reference, and this is where the app root has been defined in the body, correct? So let's say if we change this from app root to app root 1, we will not be able to see things being rendered here. Why? Because currently we have changed the app root, because in the main app component TS, currently the selector has been linked to app root, right? Whereas in the index.html, we have changed this to app root 1. So for example, if we have changed this value, then we also have to update this here. And if we save this now, then only the application is going to be rendered here. So if we had defined multiple app components, or we can say we had defined multiple root elements, then that is also needs to be defined here. And whatever elements, whatever components we create under app component.html, we can see the same thing is also getting updated. So, and plus to define the styling for it, we can add the style tag here, or we can define the styling for each and every element here itself. Or if you want to define the styling separately, then here we can refer to app.component.css, and in here we can define the styling element as well. For example, let's say we want to define styling for h1. So here we can define h1. Let's say we wanted to define the color for h1 as suppose deep pink. So here we can define deep pink as a color, and suppose if we save it, we can refer back, we can see the color of it, this one has been changed. Same way we want to define different styling for the button as well, then we can also do that as per the requirement. All right. And if you want, we can integrate other frameworks as well into Angular. For example, let's say we want to integrate Angular here. So what we have to do, so first of all, if you have local files available for, let's say we have another framework by the name of Bootstrap. For example, we have another framework by the name of Bootstrap. So what we can do, if we want to integrate Bootstrap, which is basically a framework given to us by Twitter. So if we want, we can download the entire Bootstrap framework, and then we can refer to the local files available there. Or if we want, we can use a CDN of Bootstrap, as in the content delivery network link. So for example, we can come back to the browser and suppose here we have Bootstrap download. So here we can get the CDN link, as in the content delivery network link here. So we can use a Bootstrap CDN to integrate them directly. And to download the Bootstrap framework, so we can either download the entire local file that we have to refer into our web application, And here we can scroll down to get the access to Bootstrap CDN. So here we can copy this. And then we have to come back to our Visual Studio Code. So whatever app components we want to refer to, so we have to define the entire CDN for all the libraries there. And then only that changes are going to be applicable in the app component.css as per of the definition. So for example, here in order to use a CDN, we have to navigate to app component.html, whichever app component we want to refer to. And here we can define the CDN here. So as you can see, currently we have copied then both the script as in we have copied the bootstrap.minify.css, which contains all the styling components of Bootstrap framework, along with integrating the Bootstrap minify.js as well, which also has multiple functionalities defined in Bootstrap. So we have inserted both the scripts here in the app component.html, and once we save this, if we go back, as you can see, now it has been updated with the styling defined under Bootstrap framework itself, right? For example, let's say we can see the styling and the font family for these both fonts have been changed along with their weight as well, weight and size, and the font size. And let's say if you want to change the styling for this get started button, so we know that there are multiple predefined classes available under Bootstrap. So what we can do, we can simply start defining the classes here. For example, here we can add a simple attribute as button class, and within here we can define, suppose, button success. So if we save this, we can see the whatever class was defined under button success that has been automatically integrated here, correct? Same as, suppose, if we want this to be primary button, which is basically a blue colored button here, as soon as we save it, we can see this has been changed to get started as well. So whatever framework we have, whatever styling component is already defined under Bootstrap, we can define it. And if we want to change this, again, we can make some changes in the app component.css. For example, let's say here we don't want to use this color. We want to change the color a bit. So what we can do, we can define the styling for button. So here we can define button, and in here we can define the button styling, or we can simply define the styling as a part of inline style as well, depending upon the requirement. So thank you so much for joining, guys, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.